So we're back with the Traxxas Nitro 4Tech. In the last episode, I had gone over this car and got the engine installed and went over whether or not the easy start is the best route to use in this car or not. And as you can see, it's not. So I need to test this car, but I needed fuel in order to do that. So I went to a not so local hobby shop and I picked up the fuel, but I also picked up a few other parts. So this is where I went. It's in southern New Hampshire. I live in the North Shore, Massachusetts, and I picked up the parts that I thought I could use with my 4Techs. This is the 2 bottles of fuel I got for now. One says off-road and the other doesn't. I don't know what specifically each fuel is for, but I'm gonna run them. So I picked up a few of these shafts because I always break the pin on them. And I've been having catastrophes with E-clips and stuff, so I figured I'd grab a few of those. Grab the last exhaust gasket and the last couple back plate gaskets. Can't go wrong with some linkage for a throttle or servo horn. I got the throttle linkage. These are what they had left on the shelf, so I just grabbed them. And in one of the engine disassemblies, I found that the carburetor was janky, so I had a couple of these on the shelves and I grabbed those just to get the carburetors back to working order. And these are the parts specific for the 4Tech. These could be used in other vehicles, so I just grabbed a few. I had been using the RPM ones, but it's pretty much a universal part. Grabbed a few of these flathead screws because it's always good to have a set of those. Grabbed these shock caps and a set of shocks. So maybe before I get to driving this one, I'll go ahead and swap out the used pair of shocks and put on those nice blue caps, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So as you can see, I went in just for fuel. Came out with more than just fuel. So these are the parts that are more specific for the 4Tech. Grabbed a few belts, even though I have the new sets of 3. Grabbed some pulleys. These are the last they had. They did have some spare gears, but they only had the 45 tooth for the first gear. So I grabbed a couple of those. Grabbed a couple of clutch bells. They only had the 19 tooth, they didn't have the 20. So I can make a couple of more clutch bells and be able to change the gearing out plentiful if I need. So I thought that was a good haul there. Obviously I didn't intend on getting anything more than the fuel, but I do know that store has some of the older Traxxas stuff, so that's why I went ahead and picked that up. So now I can run this one. I want to bench test it and drive it here in the driveway before I take it to the main car park. I'll make sure to put the zip ties on the exhaust and look for the proper, or not proper, but look for the leaks that may occur. Hopefully this one doesn't leak. This is the engine I had in it last, and it's just an oily mess. I don't know if it's coming through the carburetor. I did have everything broken down nice and clean, but I'll have to go over this engine again. So that is where the Vortex are, and we will get this one tested. Real quick, I just wanted to mention, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the right pilot shaft. The Vortex one, instead of having this groove for an E-clip, has a hole with threads for a screw, because it'll be very difficult to get a E-clip in there. So that'll be probably one of the hardest parts to find for this vehicle. If you're sourcing it alone, you'll be able to find them in the old ones with the 1.5, but you'll have to buy a complete unit to get that shaft. So just something to pay attention to with the Vortex in the 1.5 blocks. I'm gonna go with this fuel first. I'm very excited that my Bones Brew nozzle works on these bottles. So we'll see if it spills. I'll let you know. But yeah, it's gonna be good to see this other car being fired up. So I'm glad I looked at things before I took it off the bench. I was able to start it. I changed the settings of the tune. I went 3.5 out on the high and 2 out on the low, and it seems to hold an idle. I don't want to set the fire alarm off though, so I'm gonna do some more idling testing once I get it outside. But the problem I noticed is the steering interferes with the front belt. So I'm gonna observe the other one, or the other two, see if there's any similar issues in these. And then I think when I look at it, well, the steering needs an adjustment anyway. So if I reset it on the servo, I think it'll move the crossbar just far away enough from the belt so that the rod ends don't interfere. So I'm gonna do that quickly. Again, I'm glad I realized that now before I get it out there and ruin a belt potentially. So yeah, I just gotta pop the exhaust off and then recenter that and then see about the clearance. All right, so looking at these two, there's no interference with the belt and the cross member there. That's good to know for these new belts, that there's no interference. I'm not sure what belt this is, but there's just barely, if any, interference. And then on this one, after straightening out the steering servo saver, it's much better, but there still is interference. But with the cross member engaging with the belt, there doesn't seem to be any drag or difference in input to moving. And if there is, it's so little that you can't really tell. So I'm glad that I noticed that. That's why I'm gonna start making sure I go over the cars before I take them out for testing. So yeah, I think at this point it's ready to go outside and be sure there's no leaks. I did have it idling, you know, for a minute or so. I don't notice anything right off the bat, but we'll need more time doing that in order to tell. So now we're ready. Let's take it outside. I'm glad I checked on the bench again before I came out here, because there was a couple of screws loose in the chassis, the ones that clamp the engine mount down between the upper chassis and the bottom chassis. Yeah, these engines, a lot of people just put them away dirty, and there's still plenty of life left in them, so. You can see it's plenty rich. I don't want to drive it too much here because there's acorns and stuff, and they can cause you to lose control. It's funny how little rock or a little acorn can do that. I wonder if I'll get it to shift. Ooh. I think I'm gonna put some stock wheels back on here. So it's going to need some tuning in the 2-speed shift point, but you can see that it runs. I think this exhaust is helpful too. So I finished that tank off camera. I had the engine stall out. I wasn't sure if it was the glow plug, so I replaced it with a cheapo HSP one. There's still plenty of life in this one. It seems to glow bright, but it did start up and I was able to finish the tank, so that's good. The deflector came off, but that's fine. It actually sounds better without the deflector, so I won't use it. So now I can just do the zip ties for the exhaust coupler, and this should be ready to hit the field for testing. When you look at the chassis around the motor, there doesn't seem to be any oil, so this engine is not leaking, which is good. If you look at the bottom of the chassis, there isn't any debris there, if you will, so that's good. And I didn't notice any damage or real interference in the performance from that little bit of rubbing from the rod end on the crossbar of the steering rack. But if you look a little bit closely, you can see some debris gathering up at the end of the rod. So we'll just have to keep our eye on that. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and charge the remote and charge the batteries and take this out to the field later and give it a proper run. Unfortunately, it's a wash.